Yeah, wait a moment. Pointer option. Then crystal structure imperfection, solidification, and solid state transformation. So last week we had reviewed some basic knowledges from chemistry, yeah, that about the structure of atoms, mostly what we are using now, for at least for most of the engineering, is the Bohrian model, yeah, Niels Bohr's model. There are other models, for example, Rutherfordian and Schrodinger's model, but those are more difficult. Schrodinger's model are more difficult because that involves the calculation of the probability density, yeah, or what from quantum mechanics. But since in engineering we require some certainty, to some extent, then we usually use the Bohrian model, a simpler model, more often. So we have discussed that what is important in the making of a molecule is the valence electrons. Okay, then we have reviewed last week that electron first fills the orbitals according to this order. Yeah, this order from the first energy level n, yeah, at the first shell, and then at the first subshell, then goes to the second shell, the first subshell, which is 2s. Afterwards, it goes to the second subshell or orbital, subshell of the second shell, then goes to the first subshell of the third shell, 3s. Like this, like that, yeah. So according to this order, so or if we write it down like this, I add 1s, 2s, 2p, 3s, 3p, 4s, 3d, etc. So here, if we see the atomic table, the periodic table of atoms, we see that the first column mostly has one valence electron on its outermost shell, usually in the first subshell. So the first row will be having one atom in the S1. The second the second row will have one atom in the second S, 2s, yeah, in the second shell. Third row, one atom in the 3s subshell, so etc. Okay, so this is hydrogen, 1s1. Afterward, this is beryllium, magnesium, calcium, not beryllium, sorry, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, and francium. Yeah, if you can remember. Then the second column will be filled with the two atoms, yeah, of the first subshell of the, if it were in this second row, it will be filled in the second shell, etc., etc. So this is beryllium, magnesium, calcium. Uh, what else afterwards? Strontium, and then barium, and then radium, if I'm not mistaken. On the other hand, opposite to this one, we have also at the last column, or the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, 8, yeah, in the eighth column, these are atoms whose uh, whose outermost subshell are completely filled. Yeah, for example, if it were in the first row, this is helium. Yeah, this is helium, who has atomic number of 2. And it has 2 electrons, orbiting and or filling all of the s subshell of the first shell. Yeah, this is and first it can fill up to 2 electrons, so it has 1s2. And afterwards, this is what is that? Yeah, after the second row, I forgot. Uh, neon, yeah, neon has all the second cell filled. So the 2s is of course filled, and then the second subshell. Yeah, here the second shell can has can have a maximum of 2 subshell. So the neon second subshell, the P, the 2p is also fulfilled, yeah, by the electron, by the 6 electrons. That's why we write it down as 2p6. Then helium, neon, argon. The third row is argon. Here, argon, on the other hand, only the second subshell of the third cell is filled. Yeah, the 3p6. Yeah, the 3p6 is completely filled with 6 electrons. He, helium, neon, argon, krypton, yeah, with 4p6, and xenon with 5p6, yeah, etc. One column before, and we know that this completely filled electrons, completely filled shell of atoms are called as the noble gases. Helium, neon, argon. Why they are called noble gases? Because they are very inert. They are difficult to react with other gases. Yeah, because of the completely filled um, uh, subshells of their cells. And we know from chemistry that binding, ionic binding or covalent binding can only occur if they need more electron or they need to release what do you call it, an extra electron. So if we see here that the atoms in the first column and the second column, they have like an extra 1 or 2 electrons. If in order that they become stable, they need to release this electron or share these electrons to other atoms to form molecules. So that's why they tend, yeah, the first row and the first column and second column of atom tend to make a positive, tend to release 1 or 2 electrons and become positive ion, yeah, or cation, and to form then ionic binding with the one from the sixth or seventh column atoms. Yeah, if you look at here at 7th column, this is fluorine, chlorine, brome, iodine, and here what is it? 80, not arsenic. Yeah, I forgot. So here, before it needs 1 more electron in order that its outermost subshell will be completely filled. It has 2p5. So while 2p5, as you can see here, this is 2p5. So if we can take a moment, 2p5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it needs 1 more electron in order that it can be full. Yeah, in order that it can be full, and that is why it tends to capture electron. It tends to capture 1 single electron. It has very large attractive force towards 1 electron, so that its outermost subshell can be filled, and this makes them easier, or they tend to become a negative ion or anion because they capture 1 single electron, means they become negatively charged. The column number 5 atoms, on the other hand, they require 2 more electrons to be completely filled in their outermost subshell. That's why they also tend to have a large attractive force towards electrons to capture 2 more electrons, and they become cations having 2 extra negative charges. Yeah, in this one, in order that it is their subshell P completed as 2p6, 3p6, 4p6, etc. Okay, so based on that, yeah, usually atoms at the leftmost columns, they tend to be cation or positive ions, yeah, and atoms at the rightmost 2 columns tend to be before completion, they tend to be negative ions or anions. And when they do, and then these 2 atoms from the leftmost column and the rightmost column combine using electrostatic, very strong electrostatic attraction. They form what we call as ionic bonding. In ionic bonding, one of the atom release electron, transfer electron, and become positively charged ion, and the other atoms attract this electron, yeah, to become negatively charged ion or anion, and they then bind because of this positive negative attraction. Covalence, on the other hand, happen on atoms with less. We call that tendency to attract electron as electronegativity. Yeah, electronegativity. That's why uh, the one that is that attracts electron, the one on the 7th column and the 6th column, they are very electronegative because they attract easily electrons to become negative ions. On the other hand, the atoms on the two leftmost column, yeah, they are the opposite of electronegative. They are very electropositive. Or if we say in terms of electronegativity, they have very small electronegativity because they tend to release electron, releasing electron to become positive ion. So between these two opposite atoms from the leftmost columns and the rightmost columns, there are atoms in the middle columns. Yeah? In the middle columns, they are not that electronegative, they are not that electropositive. What will happen to them? They will tend to share electrons in order that their subshells can be completed. Example like oxygen. Oxygen requires two electrons, yeah, two electrons to be completed. But if you look, oxygen, it is somewhere here. I think in this part, in this part. So they tend to have two more electrons, but these electrons are acquired by sharing with another oxygen atom. Yeah, and with another oxygen atom. So that sharing means that the two electrons, one electron from one oxygen, the other one from one oxygen, will be traveling in both nucleus of the two atoms, yeah, like that, the cloud dragon. So this is what we call as covalent bonding, and covalent bonding is very, very strong bonding. In ionic bonding, so after it is released, so basically that positive ion that release the atom that releases electron is already stable. It has complete electron in its outermost subshell. The other electron is also stable. Yeah, it's also stable because it has completed its outermost subshell. So the binding occurs between two stable ions due to the different charges. While so it is more of electrostatic in nature. While in covalent bonding, it is due to the sharing. Okay. Metallic bonding, on the other hand, happens because metal atoms usually are in the middle, also in this transition elements. Yeah, in the middle, these are metals mostly. Well, some also are in the first columns. The first two columns are also usually metals. Metal atoms tends to release electron as well, similar to the first two columns atoms. That's why they are also many of them are metal, like magnesium, and yes, are metal. Then lithium also are metals. So sodium also metals. Then when these electrons are released from the atoms, yeah, but in metallic bonding, these electrons from multiple atoms are released together, and then they can travel from one atom to another, performing what we call as electron cloud. Yeah, electron cloud in between the atoms. This is what happened with metallic bonding. Then with dipole moment, what is happening is that this is a kind of intermolecular binding. Yeah, intermolecular binding. So, for example, it occurs in hydrogen. One single molecule of, water. I mean, one single molecule of water is actually already stable, yeah, and it has this covalent bonding between the oxygen and two hydrogen atoms. But once in a while, because uh, electron is occurs, one part of the oxygen here is completely only has electrons part, yeah, so they are more of a negatively charged, while in the hydrogen it normally has single electron, and the single electron is covalently shared with the oxygen. So covalent short means that one single electron of hydrogen occurs more in this binding, in this bond with the oxygen. And this will result that the other side of the hydrogen will be mostly left of electron. It doesn't mean that it cannot have electron at all. In the atomic realm, we are more of speaking about probability rather than exact existent or non-existent. So at the other part of the hydrogen, it will have less probability. You will have less probability to find an electron there. What will be the consequences of that is that then that part will be more positively charged. So that is why we find that water molecule H2O is a polar molecule where positive charge occurs at the hydrogen parts of the water molecule and negatively charge occurs in the oxygen part of the molecule. And this with other water molecule the negatively charge of the oxygen will bind to the more positively charged hydrogen part of the other water molecule and forming what we call as dipole binding. And in the water case, it is specifically mentioned or as hydrogen bonding. This kind of bonding also actually occurs in different other molecules where sometimes we have random dipole, the electron travels, right, orbiting the nucleus, and some of the time the electron will be more distributed at one region of the sphere. Yeah, let's say if we consider that it is spherical, so it will have more negative charge on one side rather than on the other one. Similarly, this occurs also on the other atom. So the positive charge of this atom will tend to attract electrons from the other atoms towards this side and forming an electrostatic attraction between the two atoms. And what we will have then dipole binding. And it is called the first one due to the random dipole, due to the orbiting of the electrons. The other one induced, we call it as induced dipole because the electrons are attracted towards the more positively charged part of the first atom. Okay, but this doesn't occur too long because the electrons here are keep moving and orbiting. So sometimes it binds stronger, but then afterwards the binding release again. So it's on and off. This is what we call as more of as van der Waals bond, van der Waals binding between atoms in the same substance, same material, and this can be utilized, for example, to form addition. So addition, which is not too strong, yeah, as the other bonding types. So from here, the summary is we have ionic bonding. The bond energy is large, but they are relatively non-directional because it is due to the electrostatic force. Covalent is sometimes large, sometimes small, depending on how many electrons you are sharing to one another. Diamond, for example, it is very large. It has very large covalent binding because one single carbon is binding with other 4 carbon atoms. Yeah, it forms a tetrahedral crystalline structure. We will study about it later. Bismuth, on the other hand, has small covalent binding. And the binding is directional. Yeah? Directional means that it has this direction of binding, like a dipole like that binding. Examples of covalent bindings occurs in semiconductors, also in ceramics and polymeric chains. Metallic, on the other hand, is non-directional because the electron cloud travels and flow everywhere, yeah, within the metals. The bond energy is variable. It can have very large binding, like in tungsten. Tungsten, maybe you know, the material in the old style bulb. Yeah, maybe it's very difficult to find a bulb now because most lamp now is already replaced with LED lamp, light emitting diode. But in the past, if you maybe you still find it in the villages, the filament is made from tungsten. Tungsten is considered as heavy metal. Then the metallic bonding can be very small, like in mercury. That is why you find in mercury uh, at room temperature, it is usually in liquid state. In the past, mercury is usually used for thermometer as well as for sphygmomanometer. Yeah, as for sphygmomanometer for device to measure the blood pressure meter. Why? Because it is metallic. That's why it's reflective. We can clearly see the the, this mercury, yeah, flowing through the tube in the thermometer or sphygmomanometer, and it is liquid state, so it can be easily flowing inside the tube. Of course, it is not used anymore now because of its toxicity. Yeah, mercury is very toxic. If it goes into your body, it can be toxic to your body. Secondary bonding, like the dipole, the van der Waals, and the hydrogen bonding, they have the smallest bond energy, and they are directional. Yeah, as we can see here, the bonding are directional. Yeah, caused by the negative and positive charge of the different molecules. And they occurs interchange in the polymer, also intermolecular, for example, in water molecule. However, they can be quite decisive in determining the material properties. Yeah, for example, the melting temperature. Yeah, if that material, for example, in the liquid state has a lot of this secondary binding, for example, due to the hydrogen bonding, usually the melting temperature will become higher, yeah, because it will be very difficult to make them dissociate from one another, to make them breaks this bonding. Okay, we will explain this in more detail in the second other slide actually. So this is crystal structure, yeah, introduction to crystal structure. So besides the chemical bonding that occurs between atom and atom in various chemicals, various materials, in solid material, yeah, especially with material science and engineering, we are concerned more with materials in the solid state. And in solid, why they become solid? Besides, of course, there are binding between the atoms to form the molecules. The molecules to molecules, to one molecule to other molecules also, they are arranged in a periodic ordered manner, in periodically ordered manner. So in what we call as crystalline structure. Why it is called crystal? Because they occurs in periodicity. Yeah, for example, in this case, the blue or purple balls represent the cation, the smaller cation or sodium, while the green balls represents the larger anion or chlorine ion. So here you see the periodicity, yeah, in 3 dimensions. So in crystal structure, usually the periodicity is in 3 dimensions. After one green ball, there is a purple ball, etc. A crystal structure like this is called as sodium crystal, sodium chlorine structure, yeah. Sodium chloride structure. Yeah, sodium chloride is basically the salt, yeah, the salt that we eat every day and we put into our food. This is made from sodium chloride, and that is why we see the structures like that. That it has this crystalline structure, and usually they are in cubic periodicity. When in cubic, that it could be a cubic could be body center cubic, in which atoms will fill not only the corners of the cubes, but also the center of the cube. So we call it the body center cube. Yeah. Examples are like the iron, then the vanadium, niobium, and chromium. These are metals having the BCC. Then we have face center cube. These are materials the atoms fill a lattice. Yeah, we call it lattice. Lattice is the one single unit of periodic structure. Okay, face center cube (FCC) has the atoms fill in the centers, the corners, yeah, the corners of the cube, as well as the center of each side of the cube. Examples are aluminum, nickel, silver, copper, and gold. Then we have also metals having, instead of cubic lattice, it has this hexagonal periodic structure or lattice. Yeah? Example are titanium, zinc, magnesium, and cadmium. the atoms fill in the corner of the hexagonal as well as the center of the top and bottom side. Okay, then these are other structures, crystalline structures. Cubic itself, this is simple cubic, primitive cubic, where the atoms only fill the corners. We have body center cubic, and we have the face center cubic or FCC. Okay, and the cubic is when the lattice has the same sides, all the in the three axes. A equals to B equals to C, and the angles is all 90 degrees. We have other crystal structure or lattice structure called as the tetragonal, where the sides are the same in the two axes, but not the same in the one axis. Yeah? A equals to B, but it is not equals to C. But the angles between the three axes are still 90 degrees. We have the orthorhombic crystal lattice, where the angles between the three axes are 90 degrees. However, the three axes length are completely different. Okay, A is not equal to B, is not equal to C. And we have the primitive one where the atoms only fills the corner. We have the I, here is the body-centered one, body-centered orthorhombic. Besides filling the corners, the one single atom fills the middle or the center of the lattice. We have also face center cubic where beside the corner, atoms also filling the side of each of these orthorhombic. And we have the side center, yeah, where it only fills in two sides besides the corner, where two atoms filling the two sides in the center of the two sides of the structure of the lattice. Then we have hexagonal, as I have mentioned in the previous slide, where A equal B and but not equal to C. Two angles are 90 degrees, but one angle is 120 degrees. Okay, so this is the primitive one, but one element of the hexagonal. We have the trigonal structure, trigonal lattice, where A equals B equals C. However, alpha equals beta equals gamma, but they are not equal to 90 degrees. Yeah, more like what do you call it? What structure is it? It has 6 sides, but it's like uh, being transformed, yeah, and so that the angles are not 90 degrees. We have monoclinic crystal lattice, where A is not equals to B, is not equals to C, but two angles, alpha and gamma, is 90 degree. Yeah, here, alpha between one side is 90 degree, one also 90 degree, but the other one, beta, is not equal to 120 degrees. So this is monoclinic structure. And we have triclinic, yeah, crystal lattice. A is not equal, A length, the length of the axis is not equal one to one another, but and the alpha, the angles are not also equals to 90 degree. Okay, so and they are not equal to each other as well. So from here we have 7 crystal classes. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cubic, tetragonal, orthorhombic, hexagonal, trigonal, monoclinic, and triclinic. Each one, for example, cubic has 3 types. Simple cubic like this, body-centered cubic and face-centered cubic. Tetragonal has has 2 lattices, Bravais lattice. Orthorhombic has 4, hexagonal has 1, trigonal has 1, monoclinic has 2, and triclinic has 1. So total we have 3 plus 2, 5 plus 4, 9 plus 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. 14 Bravais lattices. Okay, later we will study in more detail about crystallographic direction. This is when we want to express a direction within a single lattice. So this is a vector reposition if necessary to pass through the origin. Yeah, so the algorithm is first is to For example, we have this direction, yeah, these two directions, one here and the other one here. Okay. So first is reposition, yeah, the vector to pass through the origin, read off projection in terms of the unit cell A, B, and C, adjust to smallest integer values. Then afterwards enclose in square brackets without commas, like this. Yeah. For example, here in the x direction it is 1, in the y direction it is 0, right? Because it doesn't have any direction in the 0. But in the z direction it is half of the lattice. Lattice is one single crystal unit. So then after that we adjust to the smallest integer value. We multiply, since this is half, we multiply each with 2. Each number with 2, so this becomes 2, 0, and 1. Then we enclose in square bracket like this, without comma, 2, 0, 1. So this represents a vector direction within a single Bravais lattice. The other one here, yeah, we have in the x direction, origin is at 0, 0, 0. X direction is -1 because it goes towards the mirror, yeah, towards negative x axis. The y direction is 1. The y direction is 1. The z direction is also 1. The z direction is also 1. So this is become minus 1, 1, 1. Then over bar here represent negative index. So actually this is supposed to be only single over bar, yeah. So this become not like this, but 1, 1, 1. So the other two ones are without over bar. Okay. So we could have families of direction. For example, where the numbers are the same, only the where they occurs in the coordinates are maybe different, or the polarity may be different. Polarity means whether they are positive or negative. For example, the family 1, 0, 0, yeah, enclosed within bracket, yeah, within the what you call it, that not square bracket, but in less than or more than, yeah, bracket, elbow bracket or something like that. So here 1, 0, 0 it will include direction of 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, or 1 over bar 0, 0, 0, 1 over bar 0, or 0, 0, 1 over bar. So this belongs, the 6 factors belong to the same family of 1, 0, 0. Okay. Then we can also express a plane within crystal lattice using what we call as Miller indexes. Miller indexes is the reciprocal of the 3 axial intercepts for a plane. Clear of fraction and common multiples, then all parallel planes will have the same indexes. So if we have a plane, how to do the algorithm? First, read off the intercept of that plane with axis in the XYZ in terms of 3 number A, B, C. Yeah, and within a single unit of crystal. After that, take reciprocals of the intercepts. Then you reduce it to smaller integer value, basically similar like for the direction, but enclosed in parentheses, but not with square bracket, instead with parentheses like this. Yeah, this is for Miller indexes without comma. So for example, here we have a plane. Yeah, here a plane, the blue plane within that single unit single unit crystal lattice. In the A, it intersects with the x-axis in this side in 1, basically. One means one single A, yeah, one single unit crystal lattice A. At Y, it intercepts in B. At Z, it does not intercept at all. It does not intercept the Z-axis at all. So this plane is basically parallel to the Z-axis. Okay, so let's write down the Miller indexes for this plane, the intercepts at the x-axis is 1 multiplication of A. A is the crystal parameter, yeah, at the x-axis, and 1 at 1b at the crystal lattice at the y-axis, and it does not intercept at z, or we can write it down as infinity. It intercepts at the z-axis, but at infinity, which means basically it does not intercept at all, right? So we take reciprocals of this 1, 1, infinity. 1 over 1, 1 over 1, 1 over infinity. This becomes 1, 1. 1 over infinity becomes 0. Okay. After that, we reduce still 1, 1, 0. So no possible reduction. And then we can write them down as these three numbers without commas within parentheses as 1, 1, 0 plane. Okay. Another example like this, we have a plane. If we look at that plane, it is also does not intercept with z-axis. It does not intercept the y-axis either. Okay, it only intercepts the x-axis at half of a axis. Excuse me. So we write down first the coordinate where it intercepts the three axes. So at at x-axis, it intercepts at half of a. At b, it intercepts the y-axis at infinity of the b. So we write it down infinity. While with the z-axis, it intercepts also at infinity. Okay, so the intercepts are half, infinity, and infinity. So then we took the reciprocal. 1 over half, 1 over infinity, 1 over infinity. So this becomes 2, this becomes 0 and 0. We reduce, it still becomes, we can reduce this actually, we can 2, 0, 0. So we can reduce to 1, 0, 0. Okay, so let's put it here. This becomes 1, 0, 0. Divided by 2, it becomes 1, 0, 0. So if you look here, then if 1, 0, 0 is basically another plane, yeah, if we go backward, yeah, that is also here. Yeah. So this 2, 0, 0 plane is basically equivalent to this plane, as well as actually this plane is also 1, 0, 0. Okay, equivalent to 2, 0, 0. So only the 2, 0, 0 plane, it occurs 2 times within the single crystal. Okay, but they can have the same index, Miller indexes. Okay. Another example here, where we have the plane intercepts at half of A, then at y-axis it intercepts at 1 of B, at the z-axis it intercepts at 3/4 of the C, like the lattice index, yeah, C. So we write it down, half, 1, and 3/4. Then we take the reciprocal, 1 over half, 1 over 1, 1 over 3/4. So this becomes 2, 1, and this becomes 4 over 3. Now this still has fraction, and Miller indexes should not have any fraction. So we multiply with 3, so that all the numbers become integers. So 2 times 3 becomes 6, 2 times 1, 3 times 1 becomes 3, 3 times 4 over 3 becomes 4. So the Miller indexes of this plane is 6, 3, 4. Okay. Like the direction, we can also have family of plane. For example, and for family of planes, we express it in curly bracket, curly parentheses. Yeah. So the example of a plane of 1, 0, 0 like this, it could be, it includes the plane of 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1 over bar, 0, 0, 0, 1 over bar, 0, 0, 0, 1 over bar. Okay. So What if the index is plane, the index of the plane is known, and you are asked to draw the plane? That is something which you need to find out yourself, yeah, how to do it. Then the algorithm will be the reverse order from the example shown. Okay, let's go a bit quickly. So this is in crystal, in any solid material, usually the crystals are not perfect. There will be imperfection. Ya, in bahasa Indonesia we call it tak ada gading yang tak retak. There is no ivory except there is crack in it. So similarly, in any materials, there is no perfect materials. There is always crystal imperfection. Now the problem is what types of imperfection and how many are there. So, and therefore the imperfection could be of in the form of self-interstitial atoms, where there is atom of the same type that is located not in its supposed place, yeah, not in the supposed place according to the crystal structure, but maybe in between the other two atoms, yeah, which called self-interstitial atom. On the other hand, there could be also atom that is or location that is supposed to be filled with atom, but there are no atoms. Instead, there are no atoms filling it. So this is called as vacancy imperfection. We could also have impurity atom. Yeah, impurity atom. There are two types of impurity. When one is when the impurity atoms. Impurity means when the atoms comes from other types of atom from an external material. One is when the atom, the external material atom is smaller than that materials atom, so that the smaller atom can fill in the space between the host atoms. So this is called as interstitial impurity atoms. We have also substitutional impurity atoms, where the atoms of the impurity having similar or a bit larger size compared to the host atoms. This is called as substitutional impurity atoms. So, but these how many already? 4 cases of imperfection happens at point, yeah, places or point location. That's why they are called as point imperfection. We have also line imperfection, like this, yeah, when we have the imperfection forming as a line, like this one is they are the grain boundaries. This one are single crystal structure, the other one is single crystal structure having different orientation, and the boundary between them are not filled with anything. So this can occur, for example, other imperfection or line imperfection occurs like this, yeah, one single line that is supposed to be filled by atoms are missing. Yeah, so then, for example, the two lines becomes closer at the next row here. This is impurity, yeah. Interstitial impurity atom. This is also interstitial impurity atom. This is vacancy. This is substitutional impurity atoms, but more atoms are filling, so making the crystalline order to be distorted. Yes, Ezra?
Sir, I want to ask what caused the crystal imperfection?
Yeah, crystal imperfection occurs when the material starts to crystallize. Usually, we make crystal from the liquid state. We melt first the material and then we solidify the materials to make crystal. Usually during the solidification, somehow the imperfection will occur. Yeah, if it is an engineered material. If it is natural material, of course, yeah, depending on the situation where it occurs, like in nature. Yeah, so of course, nature usually has random states. Of course, then many impurities can happen, many imperfections happen. It's
Oh,
why,
so it based on the procedure that we use, it
yes,
will shape that.
yes. That is why in engineering material, one of the I remember the first class is that the structure happens because of the processing, right? What kind of
Yeah.
processing we are using. So during the processing, we have to control all the parameters. Yeah, later we will study more about this. And imperfection can be controlled as well. How many of the imperfection should occur within 1 meter cubic of or 1 centimeter cubic of the material, for example. Yeah. So, and imperfections does not mean always bad. Sometimes, or not sometimes, many times imperfections are needed. Are needed. So that is also why during the processing we need to control the imperfection type and how many of these imperfection should occur. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
This is another type of imperfection called as dislocation. So the movement of here, dislocation means where the imperfection move. The imperfection move like this. So here it is a slide, a line in edge imperfection which will move to the edge of the material. Yeah, this is one way, of course, also to reduce the occurrence of imperfection in the middle of the material. So it becomes on the edge, and then the edge part we can get rid of. Okay, I think time is up for this first hour. So I have a meeting in the 9 a.m. So we will continue this in the second session at 10 a.m. So please be ready at 10 a.m. So for now, please